In terms of where the NAFTA negotiations are, it's my view that we will end up getting a deal. It may be a while. It may have a lot of twists and turns. There may even be points at which we or the Americans walk away from the table, or the Mexicans. And it could be a negotiation in which the president actually tears up the agreement. But at the end of the day, I'm satisfied that the logic is so compelling, and the commercial strength of the agreement absolutely so balanced between the United States and Canada that we will end up with a deal similar to what we have now. Well, I think on this file, I think the Minister of International Trade, Chrystia Freeland, and the Prime Minister, and the rest of the government, and the opposition parties, and the provincial premiers have done the best job of public advocacy that I've ever seen, and in the most nonpartisan way. So I think they've handled the file beautifully, and it's absolutely appropriate for her to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And so contingency plans have been prepared, in that we're doing a European free trade deal. We're certainly doing the TPP. We're looking at expanding our trade with China. So Canada is doing things and not sitting still. But at the same time, we have an A team at the table, and my view is that with this relationship so evenly balanced, that we will end up getting a deal. Remember, this is the biggest trading relationship in the world. And it's probably the most evenly balanced trading relationship in the world. $750 billion almost of commerce, and the two parties are almost equal in terms of who benefits, with the United States a little bit ahead of us right now. And so if the president's avowed problem is that he doesn't like trade deficits is factual, then he's not going to have a problem with the Canadian free trade deal. In addition to that, we're military allies, we're best friends, and we're the biggest supplier of energy. So for all of those reasons, when all of this is over, we will end up with a bilateral trade relationship with the United States of America. Are there challenges in the negotiation? I think there are a lot. For example, and it should be obvious, three parties are negotiating. That's always problematic. Secondly, we have a president who normally, the role of president is to be on the sidelines and to be an honest broker at the end. Instead, he's throwing the grenades at the beginning. So that makes it more complex. So those items add all complexity to it. But I'm satisfied that when all is said and done, the balance of powers in the United States, the traditional way that the United States was constructed, will work to our advantage. The president does not have the power to tear this deal up by himself. It has to go to Congress, and Congress they're controlled by Republicans, Congress, and they're heavily pro-free trade, and they're heavily committed to a continuation of NAFTA. So it's my view that when it gets to Congress, if it gets to Congress as a result of him pulling the trigger on rescission, it will not be allowed to fall apart. I think Congress will insist that we end up with a final free trade arrangement between Canada and the United States in particular. In terms of the roadblocks, I would say that the U.S. demands are extraordinarily difficult for both ourselves and Mexico. For example, getting rid of the dispute resolution mechanism. We could never live with that. We walked away in 1987 when that was put on the table, and we couldn't live with it. A 5-year sunset clause, neither we can't live with it, nor can a U.S. business live with that. Nobody is going to put a factory down knowing that in 5 years' time an agreement might be over. So that's not going to work. With the Mexicans, telling the Mexicans they're going to pay for the wall, that's not going to work for them. That kind of loss of face won't work. So those are all obstacles. I'd call them noise. Some of the things that we're being asked to do are just noise that we can't possibly do. We have other complications as well. We have a presidential election coming up in Mexico that's going to be hard fought. And then we get into the midterms in the United States, and that's going to be hard fought, and trade will undoubtedly be an issue during that campaign. So those are all reasons why this negotiation is complex and probably will take more time rather than less. I've been through the original NAFTA, with the original free trade deal in '87. Then we negotiated the NAFTA provision in 1993, and then led the softwood negotiations when I was ambassador. So I've been at the table many times in different capacities, and what I've learned is you have to have patience. You have to have respect for each other, and you have to have patience. We can't jump too quickly at the provocation that seems to be coming at us pretty consistently right now. We have to cool down, and we have to let more sober minds work. We have a lot of friends in the United States. We can't forget that. There may be some difficult rhetoric from people around the table, but in the business community, there's strong support for a NAFTA relationship. In the agricultural community, strong support. Strong support in Congress for the NAFTA relationship. So I think that our leaders are approaching this appropriately, recognizing that in the United States it's not just the president that one has to have on side, but also Congress, the Senate, and a part of civil society as well. And I have not seen as good a job of public diplomacy as I've seen on this file. And at the end of the day, I think the United States of America is going to come to the conclusion that if you cannot do a deal with Canada, you can't do a deal with anybody. And this would be a total aberration of the party of Ronald Reagan to say that we are not going to have trade relationships with anybody else in the world. This would not be the United States that we know. Is there respect from both sides? In my view, yes. The ambassador tells me, but I observe it with my own eyes, that our Prime Minister and the President actually have a very good personal relationship. Our two ambassadors have an excellent personal relationship, and Minister Freeland has an excellent relationship with her counterparties, as do other cabinet ministers and premiers across the country. We are not enemies with the United States of America. We've been best friends for over 100 years. The United States is the only neighbor we have. We take the relationship really seriously. Americans take it seriously. We're neighbors, we're cousins, we're friends. We've fought together. We've been through horrible calamities together, and we've been through very good times together. And we will not abandon each other during this very trying time which we're going through at present. We will get through this negotiation, and the relationship will be restored to its original luster. I think Canadians have reason to be optimistic. To start with, I am really proud of Canadians that they've stayed behind their political leadership in spite of considerable provocation. We had our NAFTA debate in Canada 20-some years ago, and the country went through an election. And afterwards, Canadians came together, and I believe now there's a large acceptance by Canada that we're better off being open to the world and enjoying the fruits of every society on the planet in terms of our trading relationships. I think Canadians should take great confidence that we're an admired nation, we're a desired partner in relationships, and that the United States of America is not going to abandon its best friend in spite of a certain amount of provocation. So let's keep our resolve, let's continue to be Canadian nice and not respond to provocation, and we will end up getting a deal which will be very good for both countries, in fact all three countries.